I just felt guilty. Oh, no. Oh, okay.
Are we good to go? Okay. Good evening. I'll reconvene this meeting of the Job Growth, Energy Affordability, Policy, and Finance Committee. Again, today is Thursday, February 2nd. We are on public testimony now. I trust that everyone has had an opportunity to get some nourishment and some enthusiasm, so that's good. So next on the list, Isaac, H-I-E-I-E. Hi, Isaac, are you here? No? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think you're going to have to give people a little bit of time because they're all wandering around. Mr. Chair, I think there are a number of people wandering around in the hall, so we'll have to take a minute to get them as you call them out. Do you have a number of people that you would like to
Well, we
couple
have
on the list?
Representative Mahoney, I want to go through those who signed up in advance, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the list from the committee page of those who signed up tonight, and then we'll go through that list.
Okay. Well, I suspect there's a few people out in the hallway that they'll have to go get, so if you'll give them a moment.
We'll make a special note then of we'll come back and ask a second time if that's all right. Brian Merle Payne. Brian Merle Payne. Aaron Sinner. Aaron Sinner.
Brian's coming.
Is Brian in the room? Oh, welcome to the committee, sir. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, my name is Merle Payne. I'm the co-director of SETU, the low-wage worker center that's based in the Twin Cities metro area. Our members are the people who build the buildings that surround us. They clean the stores in our community. They cook the food in our restaurants. Most of the workers can't be here tonight because they have to work 2 jobs to be able to survive, and they can't afford to be able to take the time to be able to testify. So on behalf of our members, I'm here to say that we vehemently oppose this bill. Corporations hold an inordinate influence over working people's lives. If you take, for example, retail cleaning, large stores like Home Depot and Kohl's contract out their cleaning, pitting dozens of cleaning companies against each other for the lowest possible bid. Companies gain the competitive edge by cutting corners on workers' rights. Take, for example, Mohubu. This is Mohubu. She works cleaning a Home Depot store. She had a miscarriage, and she was told by her company that she had to come to work the next day after having a miscarriage or she would be fired. So she had to show up at work the very next day after having a miscarriage. Take Antonia. She works cleaning a Sears store. Her daughter got sick with stomach pains, and she had to take her to the hospital. She went to the hospital and she called the manager and told her, I can't show up to work tomorrow. I have to be with my daughter. She's in the hospital. The work told her, if you don't show up, you're fired. She had to find a way to take 3 buses to be able to get to work to not lose her job, and sat at work crying all day, hustling, trying to be able to get back to work, back to the hospital to be with her daughter while she was in the hospital. She said that the nurses told her that many children are sitting in the hospital alone without their parents because their parents have to go back to work or also lose their jobs. These workers are standing up to change things, but the companies where they work consistently ignore their rights. So now they took it to the government to be able to exercise their rights in a democracy, and they won. They won paid sick days in Minneapolis. They won paid sick days in St. Paul. This will make a huge difference in their lives and the lives of many working people. So now, the Chamber of Commerce, run by large corporate interests like Home Depot and Kohl's, is attempting to do an end run around these workers' rights and around everyday people by trying to squash our ability to have a voice in our local government and in our democracy. We believe that everyone deserves a voice in their workplace. We believe that everyone deserves a voice in our government and in our democracy. We will not allow corporate interests to take away our voice, and that's why we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next is Aaron Sinner. Aaron, are you here? Oh, thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, my name is Aaron Sinner, and I'm a St. Paul resident. In February of 2015, I introduced a resolution at my local precinct caucus calling on the City of St. Paul to approve an earned sick and safe time ordinance. This issue is important to me because I know many friends and people at my church who work without paid sick days, but also because from 2012 to 2014, I worked full-time as support staff for a law firm with hundreds of lawyers on staff, and I did not receive any paid sick days or PTO benefits. My resolution for earned sick and safe time in St. Paul passed my precinct caucus, as did dozens of resolutions introduced by people like me across the city. That summer and fall, earned sick and safe time became a campaign issue for aspiring St. Paul City Council members. When I cast my vote in the city elections in November 2015, it was with earned sick and safe time firmly in mind. Beginning in January 2016 and culminating with a vote in September, our St. Paul City Council took a very thoughtful approach to examining this issue, an approach that included listening sessions, a citizens task force, an online survey, and hearings with public testimony. I'm not exaggerating when I say hundreds of people attended listening sessions, public meetings, and hearings to express their support for an earned sick and safe time ordinance. I'm proud of the process my city implemented, and I'm proud of the ordinance that my city council ultimately passed that protects workers and guarantees them the much-needed benefit of earned sick days. The process that led to St. Paul's earned sick and safe time ordinance represented local democracy at its finest. This is why I'm so disheartened to hear the Minnesota legislature is considering a bill that would do an end run around a decision my city made at the local level. By passing this bill, you would be saying no. No to a city council that voted unanimously for an earned sick and safe time ordinance, no to hundreds of people who came out to show their support for that ordinance, and no to 72,000 St. Paul workers who are looking forward to receiving this much-needed benefit. Please vote no on this proposal to interfere with a democratic decision made by my local government. Thank you for your time.
Can you please restate your name again?
Aaron Sinner.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Jacob Fry from City Council member. No?
Mr. Chair.
Representative Dabney.
Councilmember Bender had indicated that Councilmember Fry had a name.
Oh, okay. Well, if he comes back, let me know. Rod Adams from Neighborhoods Organizing for Change. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name's Rod Adams. Give me just 1 second. I'll pull this up. Sorry, I wasn't prepared. Okay. All right. My name's Rod Adams. A former restaurant worker, now a workers' rights organizer. I'm here to speak out against local interference and make sure cities like Minneapolis keep the right to be the progressive beacon it has been for so long. 2 years ago, I worked as a prep cook, cutting various vegetables, and one day I ended up slicing the tip of my thumb off. In that very moment, I wanted to go home. Excruciating pain and bleeding, I asked my manager to go home. And I was told, no, I can't leave. I had to finish my shift. When I finally clocked out later that day, after working for 4 more hours in excruciating pain, I went to the hospital, received 9 stitches, and was told not to work for 3 days. I relayed this information to my manager, and I had been told, like, if I didn't come to work, that I would lose my job. Now, as a low-wage worker with no protections, if I miss 1 day of work, it could mean I can go hungry for a day or so. These are the very real consequences of workers all over the Twin Cities. The Earned Sick and Safe Time Ordinance placed protections where there originally were none. With the 13-0 unanimous vote, the Minneapolis City Council passed the Earned Sick and Safe Time Ordinance, and that ordinance gave a voice to the voiceless. City Council members listened and sympathized with the struggle of being a low-wage worker, a life that corporate lobbyists, as many of you on this committee, would never understand. They listened and crafted a policy that reflected on that. Now, the beauty of the American democracy is that everyday citizens can be change makers at the local level and organize around issues that are important to them. With the passage of statewide preemption, you effectively take away that right. Government should be among all things accessible, and the passage of this bill does away with access and forces us to deal with state legislators who don't knock on my door, who don't know my name, and don't know my issues. I urge you to understand the struggles of hundreds of thousands of low-wage workers who can't afford a paid lobbyist, who benefit from bills such as Earn Sick and Save Time, and the 71,000 people in Minneapolis will be pulled out of poverty with a living wage implemented of $15 an hour. And earlier today, I heard a bunch of folks testifying saying that this is an attack on business. This is confusing. This is not an attack on business. This is an attack on poverty. And if it's confusing, there are hundreds of thousands of families who have to figure things out every single day. So if businesses have to figure out how to work these policies and how to regulate their employees and their employees' health benefits, then so be it. Because as we sit here right now, there are folks who are starving. There are folks who have lost their job because Earn Sick and Save Time hasn't came into implementation yet. For you to stand here and think about taking it away, it's a shame. I thank you for listening to me, and I hope you guys make the wrong decision and kill this bill. I mean, the right decision and kill this bill. Wrong.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, sir. Nelson Ramos? No? Okay. Kadri Ali from SEIU? Okay. Pastor Grant Stevenson? And then on deck is Dr. Stephen Pomrenke. Doctor, are you still here? Okay, then on deck will be Devin Beach. Is Devin Beach here? Welcome to the committee. Who's who here? That was a joke, I'm sorry, I didn't. Please proceed with your testimony.
I come dressed up. Mr. Chairman, thank you for hearing my testimony. I'm going to be brief tonight, but I would like to say, let me tell you my name, Grant Stevenson. I am a Lutheran pastor here in St. Paul. I work with the Isaiah organization, and I'm impressed and humbled by the testimony that I've heard here tonight. I want to address a line that I heard over and over again from people testifying in favor of House File 600, which is a desire for uniform labor practices. And on the surface of that, I guess that sounds like it makes a certain kind of common sense, but I've been thinking about it the whole time, sitting here listening and thinking, you know, there simply is no virtue in uniform labor practices if they are uniformly bad. And I think that the people who have been testifying here from St. Paul and Minneapolis are testifying here out of a sense of coming from communities where they have tried to move ahead of the state of Minnesota, where it has been dragging its feet on doing the work that it needs to do for working men and women in this state. Uniform labor practices are not what we need in this state, but the ability to encourage each community to do the very best that it can. It's not the first time that these issues have come before this body, Mr. Chairman. Over and over again, the issue of earned sick time, the issue of raising the minimum wage has come before the House and the Senate in the state of Minnesota, and over again, it has been turned down. What's interesting to me about that is when we bring the issue of minimum wage to the House of Representatives in Minnesota, what we are told over and over again by the very same people who are here advocating for passing House File 600. What we are told over and over again is that, oh no, you cannot have a uniform minimum wage. We would need a patchwork. The minimum wage in the Twin Cities couldn't be the same as the minimum wage on the Iron Range or in Northwest Minnesota. Over and over again, and it's the very same people who are testifying for that. We hear, I'm sorry, I'm going to skip that because it's been covered.
Are we allowed to clap here, Mr. Chair?
So let's get real about what this is then. This is a power grab. It's a power grab to move as much of a pro-corporate agenda through every corner of the state while it's possible. You've heard this afternoon and this evening from clergy. You've heard from a bishop from Greater Minnesota. You've heard from small business owners Mr. Chairman. And I would like to just finish by showing you what a beautiful patchwork can look like. So I would ask, out of respect for the decorum of this chamber, for those in this room to silently stand if they oppose House File 600.
Is that the completion of your testimony, Pastor? Thank you very much for your testimony. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Stefan Pomrenke. I'm a family physician working at a federally qualified health center in St. Paul, where we see many who are uninsured or underinsured. On a routine, nearly daily basis, I see the health consequences of not having ready, adequate access to earned sick time. I see like 18 to 20 people every single day. And I see roofers, I see construction workers, I see landscape workers, I see truckers, I see school bus drivers. Earlier today, I saw, this morning, there was a person that came in where this exact same thing came up. I see fruit packers and restaurant workers with infectious illnesses such as colds and diarrhea that continue working for 3 to 4 days before coming in to be evaluated and getting a doctor's note for work. I see relatively mild complications of chronic illnesses such as diabetes snowball from a simple toe wound to a chronic, highly expensive battle to keep one's toe. Families are affected by their sick children needing to come into clinic and the parent needing to miss work. I was impressed by the Minnesota Department of Health's white paper on paid leave and health that was developed at the request of the legislature for the 2015 session. I represented Isaiah on St. Paul's Earned Sick and Safe Time Task Force. My Christian faith and my understanding of the command to love my neighbor and love my God led me to aid in the creation of an ordinance for St. Paul that raised the labor standards regarding sick time so that my patients and St. Paul overall could benefit. The task force was chosen by the city of St. Paul, and we had, I believe, 26 voices in all. It was quite democratic and messy, and we had many long, sometimes, well, uncomfortable discussions over the course of 8 weeks in which I couldn't see my 6-year-old and my 2-year-old because I was there after like a 10-hour day of work. But it pales in comparison to my patients that have to work 2 jobs. Some of my patients. We ultimately created an ordinance that was right for our city, our urban environment. I am strongly opposed to industry lobbies preventing local jurisdictions from implementing strong work conditions that allow for individual workers to have the time off that they need to recover from acute or chronic illnesses. This time off would thereby decrease infectious disease as well as chronic disease morbidity. This preventive medicine in the form of time off would ultimately improve the economic viability of our workforce. I see that we are a community. Each of our communities have different needs. Some communities need ordinances to raise the minimum standards for overall health around the workplace. Corporate interests should not be in a position to prevent these minimum standards. Our Christian faith sees each of us as children of God. I am called by my faith to protect my neighbor's access to earn sick and safe time.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Devin Beach. Devin Beach. Julie Kearns. Spencer ABBE, is last name is spelled that way?
Abby.
Abby?
Thank you.
And Brian Fullman, you're on deck. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, I'm Spencer Abbey. I'm a resident of Dayton's Bluff here in St. Paul. I've been in the workforce for most of my adult life. I've been a school bus driver and a child care provider. I've contracted with the United States Army and Department of State as a child care contractor. I've been a desk worker, an operations coordinator, a receptionist, The reason that I bring this up is because I want to express that I am part of the workforce that this bill is intended to affect. And I took off work this afternoon because I am repulsed by its contents. Now, we have all seen that this is a reactionary measure to the ordinances that were passed in St. Paul and Minneapolis. While I do wholeheartedly support those ordinances, I will try to keep my comments germane to the bill at hand. What I see in this bill is a request for tremendous power. I believe there was an employment attorney here earlier helping to outline just how tremendous the power this bill grants is. What I don't see is any vision, justification, or any idea of what that power is meant to be used for or accomplish. I don't see anything in the bill that says we need this power because. We need this power to help Minnesota's working families. We need this power because we want to improve the dignity of the workplaces for the people in the state that get up every day to go to work to support this society. I don't see that in this bill. All I see is a request for power. Now, I would like to pose two suggestions to the authors of this bill. The first, of course, is that you withdraw it and reconsider its submission. The second, I would like to preface with my political identity as a socialist. I also associate very freely with a number of the libertarians in this community, and I know that there are members here who may share libertarian mindsets, and I would ask those members in particular now to show us the courage of your convictions. If your conviction is for small government, and I can respect that that view is different from my own, if what you intend is small government, if that is your vision for the position you hold here, then please tell me what your motivation is in granting more power to a body in order to override a low-level, local, legitimate, legal, democratic process. I would strongly urge the authors of this bill to consider whether they have the courage of their convictions in submitting it, and I would encourage this committee to strike down this bill, which is a slap in the face to every working Minnesotan here. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Brian Fullman. Jeffrey Benny. And then is Nestor Garcia here? You're on deck, so you're next. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Jeffrey Benny. I live in St. Louis Park, and for 49 years, my family and I owned and operated a small manufacturing company. Over the years, we were located in 4 different cities, located in Hennepin, Anoka, and Isanti counties. In each location, we hired employees and sold our products while following federal, state, and local laws. I'm here to speak against House File 600. In particular, the prohibition for cities and counties against setting their own minimum wage rates. Our state system of government mirrors the federal system of government in many ways. The federal government set up the U.S. and interstate highway systems, but does not prevent states to have their own highway systems. Likewise, the state of Minnesota has a highway system, but it does not prevent counties or cities from setting up their own systems of county highways and city streets. The federal government has instituted a federal income tax, but does not preclude the states from instituting their own income tax systems. In a similar fashion, Minnesota has a state tax system, but allows counties and cities to levy taxes to fund their own city governments. Lastly, enacting a federal minimum wage, the federal government has left it to the states to set their own wage rates. In all of these cases, the higher level of government has set a floor or minimum set of standards for the lower level of government. Nowhere in these or other examples has the higher level of government set a ceiling or a maximum standard that the lower level of government could provide. The state of Minnesota should follow the federal system for minimum wage standards as it does for many other policies. The state of Minnesota should not dictate to the cities and counties by setting ceilings on minimum wages. These decisions should be left up to the elected governments of those cities and counties. In enacting House File 600, the state would be telling smaller units of government that they cannot take local considerations into account. There are significant differences in the cost of living between Albany and Blaine, or Thief River Falls and Andover. By passing House File 600, the state would be precluding the elected officials in those cities, or Wilmer and Paynesville, and others from taking those cost of living or other considerations into account as they make decisions for their constituents. Just as the federal government has left it to the states, the state of Minnesota should leave it to the individual cities, counties, and other governing bodies and allow them to set the minimum wage rates as they see fit. For these reasons I have noted, and many others, I urge you to vote against House File 600.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, and then Scott Moen, are you still here? You're on deck, Scott. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, my name is Nestor Garcia. And there's one thing I do agree with you. This is not a Trump campaign, but this policy that you guys are trying to pass is from his anti-workers policy. So I just wanted to start off with saying that I'm an organizer with 15 Now. And a lot of concerns that I heard from small businesses are concerns that I've heard also from small businesses. We've attended listening sessions at Lake Street and at Bryan Cole Center, and some of the small business owners didn't even know that this was going to be phased in over time. And one thing they also agreed with when we spoke was that their biggest enemy is big business. They're wondering why the government's providing subsidies to big businesses and not to small businesses. Their biggest threat on Lake Street was the Target down the street instead of paying people a living wage. They also understand that once you pay a living wage, that creates more spending, disposable income for people to spend on local businesses. So this is, and the other important thing to take into consideration is that the Minneapolis City Council commissioned a study that proved that all these things, that it was going to create high unemployment and all these aren't true. They couldn't find no correlation between raising the minimum wage and unemployment. They did point out that there would be from a 0.01% increase to 5.4 of prices, but that's nothing compared to the extra money that people would be getting paid. So if we want to show that we live in a democratic society, we should listen to the 68% of voters in Minneapolis that supported our proposal. We were blocked by city council in Minneapolis to stay off the ballot, but then we were able to sue and was back on the ballot for a week. And eventually they went out to the Supreme Court, which sided with them, as well as big business. Big business should really take a look into the study that Minneapolis paid for, which will prove that raising the minimum wage will not drive businesses out of the city of Minneapolis. And these wages that would, people that would benefit from these wages are Latino communities, black communities, single mothers. Single mothers would have about $800 extra a month to spend. Imagine what that could do for a single mother who has car payments, housing, education, supplies for the kids, all these sorts of things. So yeah, I hope that we show that we live in a democratic state because we have the side of the people on our side, and we don't want to see big business make another gain on working class folks.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Scott Moen, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am here representing Jewish Community Action and Isaiah. I have lived in St. Paul and practiced as a small business lawyer for over 30 years. About a year and a half ago, I began volunteering with Jewish Community Action and working for community justice reform. I'm here to speak about the bill and how it undermines both economic justice and our democratic process. The November election, followed by the inauguration of our first reality TV president, have pushed us toward a point of moral clarity. People are rapidly gaining clarity about who is working for them and who is working against them. Those of us who come from faith traditions know economic justice is a core principle of what we believe. Recently, grassroots movements led by real people were successful in getting local laws passed regarding minimum wage and paid sick leave. That was democracy at work, real people going to voting booths one by one and working to get laws passed that help them address essential economic needs. These laws are clear expressions of economic justice, paying people a wage so they can pay for things many of us take for granted: housing, food, clothing, and child care, and being able to afford to get sick. In response to local movements, there were great expressions of democracy at work. Legislators had two choices. One was to pass legislation to override local democracy. The second choice was to celebrate real people getting involved in democracy and pursuing economic justice. In response to real people telling elected officials what they need to survive, legislators could have proposed legislation to extend the local minimum wage and paid sick leave statewide. That would have satisfied a key objective of having uniform laws throughout Minnesota. Even though legislators are elected by real people, that did not happen. For some reason, real people at the local level have the idea their economic interests matter and should be expressed in policy. Instead of viewing laws as a move toward economic justice, legislators saw the move as a threat. But who was threatened? Clearly, the real people who would benefit from the laws were not threatened. So why were legislators threatened, even to the point of making state preemption a condition of a special session proposed for last summer? Enter groups like the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, the Minnesota Business Partnership, and the American Legislative Exchange Council, whose website has an article with the following ominous title: "Preemption Laws Provide Backstop for Localized Progressive Politics." Their messages of fear are worn into our consciousness. These changes will make us less competitive and hurt business. Let the market dictate wages and benefits, not lawmakers. These groups talk only about an alternative form of economic justice, always in the form of lower taxes. They also don't talk about how successful they have been in helping to create a system of corporate welfare that enables an alleged billionaire like the new president to not pay income tax for many years, if not decades. Big business was on display last summer when Wells Fargo was caught pressuring employees to offer millions of fake customer accounts because lots of accounts look good to analysts and increase the stock price. CEO John Stump, a Minnesotan, claimed to take responsibility, then got corporate tough love in the form of a $20 million severance package. Meanwhile, Wells Fargo fired 5,700 lower-level employees. No word about their severance. I have a sister who lives in Germany. Somehow Germans have universal health care, a thriving economy with a large manufacturing base, labor laws and benefits favorable to workers, and a large trade surplus. How is it that a small step toward economic justice is such a threat to our system? Income and wealth disparity have never been greater, yet those with enough or more than enough always need more. These days, our new Republican president and Republican-controlled Congress cannot wait to repeal the Affordable Care Act, eliminating health care for 20 million people and immediately reward millionaires and billionaires by reducing their taxes. I want to wrap up with a few questions to members of the committee. How would you explain this bill to someone living on a minimum wage who can't afford to be sick? Why is it fair to eliminate a very small advance in economic security while a CEO gets $20 million after engaging in massive corporate fraud? What does it say about our values if our first impulse is to crush democracy when it tries to provide a small gain in economic security for real people? As I said at the outset, people are rapidly becoming clear about who is working for them and who is working against them. Personally, I'm fed up with legislators who pretend to represent real flesh and blood people while they do the bidding of corporate alternative people. You have an opportunity to show that you support the interests of real people by ending your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, I have Mike Law. And on deck is Katie Drahos. Katie, are you here?
She testified already.
Did she? My apologies. Ginger Jensen. Ginger, are you here? Yeah. Okay, you're on deck. Welcome to the committee, sir. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good evening. My name is Michael Law. I am a native of Minneapolis and a resident of St. Paul. I am the father of 5 beautiful children and a husband. Just a brief history. I am against preemption and the killing of us being able to focus on raising minimum wage in our communities. And the reason being is that my mother worked minimum wage with 6 kids, a single mother. And what ended up happening was she ended up being brokered by drug dealers to take over our house, who sat there and they sold drugs and they made my mom a dope addict because she couldn't afford the rent. She couldn't afford to pay the bills, and they paid them for her at a cost. In the process, my mom became strung out on dope. At a process where my brothers and sisters, my 5 siblings, were put into foster care. And I, at 12 years old, was left out to fend for myself. Growing up by myself in the streets of St. Paul and Minneapolis, I was trained to steal your car, to sell drugs, to do everything in my power to not be a slave to minimum wage. I didn't go for the brainwashing. I wanted to be a father to my children. I wanted to be an example to my sons, who are now 17 and 18 years old. I wanted them to have someone to look up to that was different than the hip-hop people that they're seeing on TV who had millions of dollars. Somebody who worked hard every day. So in that process, I went to college. I graduated high school. I got my degree. But yet, I'm still forced to fight for minimum wage jobs against people who are just like me with degrees. The people who don't have degrees are stuck at below that. The truth of the matter is that in my community, in our community, right here outside this building, I live on Farrington Street. That's 6 blocks from here at Hanover Townhomes. There's crime, there's fighting, there's arguing. 3 people just got shot last night in East St. Paul. Like, the truth of the matter is that it's about money. And this preemption bill is stopping people from making more money. The thing that will get them out of these streets is more money. So you don't want your car stolen tonight? Give them more money. You don't want a person like me standing outside on your corner outside your house selling dope? More money. All I'm saying is that, simply put, I left work tonight. I worked from 1 o'clock in the afternoon until 4 o'clock in the morning. And I can't even leave to take my kid to the hospital. You want me to pre-think, oh, Mashyla might get sick today. Maybe I should call off. Or Malachi might get sick today. Maybe I should use FMLA. Where FMLA has to be signed on by the doctor. Other than that, I lose my job. So I work 12 to 14 hours a day and don't even get to see my kids. And I bust my back. And I work for big business. I know all y'all know Schroeder. I drink a lot of milk and I make a lot of milk. The truth of the matter is that I bust my butt to make sure that my kids have something to look up to. That I don't end up in the streets like my father and like my mother and like I did. And if you guys pass this bill, if you allow this to happen, not only will you have more drug dealers, more gang members, but more violence, more crime in the very neighborhoods that you come to work in. So y'all sit here all comfortable in your nice chairs in the Senate building.
Oh, no, we don't do that. I got to correct you. We do not sit in the Senate building. It's
Hey,
Very
I'm-
sensitive topic among House members of both parties. Just
well,
want to
I'm
make sure
saying-
you know.
But I'm saying at this moment right now, you're sitting here and your chair's nice.
Okay, that's good, but it's a very sensitive topic with members of both
but
sides.
there's a lot of people
Yeah.
but there are a lot
Mr. Law,
of people
please
4 or
continue.
5 blocks away from here, right on University Avenue, waiting by the light rail, trying to sell a bag of weed, a piece of crack, whatever they can sell in order to go home and feed their kids tonight. So I'm just saying, thanks for your time. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but this is wrong. Please kill the bill.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, a reminder, this is a committee of the Minnesota House of Representatives. There is an overflow room available if you wish to demonstrate at the end of presentations, but please, in committee, we do not do this. We appreciate your cooperation. Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record.
Thanks. My name is Ginger Jensen. And I'd like to start by pointing out that a new report was published today in The Guardian on wealth inequality in the United States. A quote from that report is that over the past 3 decades, the share of household wealth owned by the top 0.1% has increased from 7% to 22%. For the bottom 90% of families, a combination of rising debt, the collapse of the value of their assets during the financial crisis, and stagnant real wages have led to the erosion of wealth experienced by most Americans. Now, Representative Garofalo, 2 years ago you complained about the statewide minimum wage, saying money doesn't grow on trees. You also complained about this one-size-fits-all approach and how it would be impossible for business. I can see that your talking points have changed today. I'd like to point out as well, as others have, 6 months ago, low-wage workers in Minneapolis organized to put a $15 minimum wage on the ballot to let voters decide on wealth inequality in Minneapolis. A proposal that had a majority support would get all workers in Minneapolis to 15 by 2022 and wouldn't leave any workers behind. This was a proposal that was supported by sections of small business, low-wage workers across the city, sections of labor. And yet the Chamber of Commerce pressured City Council with process arguments, and ultimately, with the backing of the Chamber of Commerce and the National Restaurant Association, took low-wage workers to the state Supreme Court to defend keeping workers in poverty. These same big business interests are now lobbying you today, clearly. And ultimately, what came of that Supreme Court hearing was that City Council has within its power in Minneapolis to set its own minimum wage. So let's be clear. This bill is simply about maximizing corporate power. Clearly, you're pushing a race to the bottom for Minnesota workers and trying to scare small business to support this corporate power grab. And we should be clear, we see this in the context of the rest of the political climate. In Arkansas, preemption was used to support big agriculture. In Colorado, preemption was used to support fracking after communities fought the billion-dollar industry to save their water supply. And in North Carolina, preemption was used to vilify the trans community, which is already disproportionately targeted by hate crimes. Minneapolis workers have been fighting for over 2 years to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which the city's study shows will dramatically impact over 71,000 workers, predominantly women and workers of color, and will have a minimal impact on business. Since January 20th, millions have taken to the streets to inaugurate a resistance to the billionaire-backed anti-worker, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-woman agenda being pushed by the federal government. And your bill is clearly about maximizing corporate profits, preying on the fears of small businesses that are constantly being squeezed by big businesses. But while working people across the country plan to defy anti-immigration laws or Muslim bans, your bill is simply a call to action for our movement against the big business agenda you've clearly been lobbied to represent. Our health, our safety, and our human rights will not be raffled off to the highest bidder. We are building the movement necessary to defeat these Trump-style attacks and live in a world and create a world where working people's needs are met over big business profits and a series of alternative facts.
Yeah. Stan Settinger. Welcome to the committee, sir. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. My name's Dan Sattinger, and I'm a resident of Minneapolis. As I understand it, HF 600 would deny my local community the right to set its own minimum wage, leave, and a number of other policies that could improve the lives of working families. I'm a retiree. I have relatively little skin in the game, but I hear the struggles and the hard work that people in St. Paul and other communities have put into trying to assure that workers' rights are recognized and provided for. What bothers me is this kind of legislation seeks to concentrate power in the hands of wealthy special interests, increasing their ability to exert control over my community. And it's likely to preclude fair wages for hundreds of thousands of Minnesota workers. I oppose this anti-worker, anti-democracy legislation that'll harm the hardworking people of our state and so many of our communities. We've lived in Minnesota for only 6 years. We love it here. We are so impressed with the activism and the civic pride, and I could go on with the great things about Minnesota. But it's an outrage for me to be living in a state where lawmaking is now dominated by the push for corporate gains. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. David Weiss. And then Isaac, H-I-E-I-E. How do I pronounce that, Isaac? Aye. Are you here, Isaac? Yeah. Yes. So you're on deck. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. My name is David Weiss. I'm Lutheran, and I'm here with Isaiah. Like many Minnesotans, I work several part-time jobs, and every penny counts. For one job, I deliver groceries in the metro area. Last year, on the rare occasion that I got sick, I lost $100 in wages. For me, that's $100 of food, utilities, car repairs. It cost me dearly to call in sick for a single day. But not just me. I deliver groceries to senior citizens. Many face their own health challenges. I'm often their main source of groceries. For some, I'm their only source. Without paid sick time, when I got sick, I either gambled with my bills or with my health, my clients' health, and our community's health. That changed last fall when my employer, a nonprofit based in Roseville, added a sick time benefit for part-time employees. The local initiatives in Minneapolis and St. Paul started that conversation. Last October, when one of my grandchildren gave me hand, foot, and mouth disease, I became the first part-time employee in my workplace to benefit from sick pay, keeping my paycheck whole and my clients healthy. Through House File 600, powerful corporate interests hope to keep the bar for worker pay and benefits as low as possible statewide, even blocking local improvements that just passed last year. But democracy works best at the local level. Social progress almost always begins locally. It's where human dignity flourishes most, because locally it carries the face of our neighbors. It's where businesses, sometimes eagerly, sometimes reluctantly, come to see that the claims of social justice are part of the cost of doing business in a just society. Local governments from the Twin Cities to Minnesota's smallest towns deserve the right to improve the well-being of the workers in their communities. That progress has started, and there are workers in every one of your districts who hope it reaches them soon. House File 600 is an attempt to preempt that justice. Don't let that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next testifier, please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Isaac Hayai.
Mr. Hayai, hold on one second. We have Rashida. That's all we have, Rashida on deck, if there's someone here. If not, we'll give it a second. After that, we have on deck Lucinda or Lucina K.E. You're on deck. And Mr. Hayai, please proceed with your testimony.
Hi, my name is Isaac Hayai. I'm a resident of Minneapolis, and I am a preschool teacher at community childcare in St. Paul. When I started school, I didn't originally plan on going into education because I knew that a lot of the paid leave and the minimum wage was not going to be sufficient. But I continued forward because I knew that the work that I was doing was going to be important once I started at a part-time job. And right now, currently, the childcare that I work at serves over 50 children, most of whom are dual language learners and children of immigrants and international students. International students and other students at the University of Minnesota. The parents who we serve work jobs that don't have paid sick leave. So when their kids get sick, they either have to send them to school sick and get everybody else sick, or in most cases, we have to call and say, your child cannot be here, they're throwing up, which costs them not only that day, but the day after for them to stay home and help their child to recuperate, which, as many people have said, that's 2 days of not working is a lot when you don't have paid leave. The preemption will harm the kids that I care for and the kids that I teach every single day. It will harm the families that I work with every single day that I have seen grow and evolve from 1 kid to 4 or 5. A vote for preemption is a vote to strip these children of their ability to be cared for by their parents when they're sick. Please vote no on preemption. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. The next testifier, we have, looks like Ann Wheaton on deck. Ann, are you here?
I'm gonna speak for Rashida.
Yes, ma'am. Hold one second.
Okay.
You're on deck, and please state your name for the record.
Okay. Hi, y'all. My name is Wintana Melakine. I'm an organizer at NOC, Neighborhoods Organizing for Change, and I live in St. Paul. Shout out to Mahoney. You're my new rep, so make sure you do the right thing, or else. I just specifically want to speak to Garofalo directly. As the chair of ALEC, like in Minnesota, you're actually a big part of the reason why I became an organizer. ALEC is the group, the corporate entity that writes some of the most racist laws in Minnesota, specifically wrote the law that says stand your ground, that allowed George Zimmerman to kill Trayvon Martin, get away with it. The reason I became an organizer is because of that. And I just wanted to let you know that, like, yes, I'm upset, and I really want to make sure this policy doesn't pass, but I also want you to know that Minnesota is changing. You guys won this election only because you saw the power that we were building. So I'm asking you to be conscious about the decisions you make. You feel like you have this time right now in this session to make these decisions, but just this week, NOC launched a campaign to get out of the Twin Cities and start organizing in greater Minnesota. Thousands of people, and actually a lot of your own constituents have reached out to us, asking us to get into their neighborhoods to make sure that we hold you accountable. Because folks know that you're tied to corporations. Folks know that you are bought and paid for. And so we're telling you, this is not a normal demand, begging, and pleading. We're actually letting you know that if you continue to do us like this, you will lose your seat. Because we are building the power to take you out of office, and it's actually happening. All of the things that are passing right now, all the moves you're making, are direct response to the power we've built, and we will take your seat. We will take anybody's seat. We're building that power. The movement is coming, and we're not the ones that are afraid right now. Like, we see it. We're not afraid because we will take care of you. We will take you out. We will make sure that you don't have the power to ever do any of these type of policies again. And I really want folks to understand, like, he is bought and paid for, owned by ALEC. It is embarrassing. It is disrespectful to all Minnesotans that he will literally sit here and let corporations take wealth out of communities, his own constituents. So please remember that, and remember that you have the power to caucus and convention all these folks out, because their constituents are not loyal to them. them. They're loyal to the lies they told, and now they're learning the truth, and soon to be, come 2018, you won't be here.
Thank you very much for your testimony. First things first, and I apologize if I had to use the little boy's room, but did everyone who signed up to testify yesterday get a chance to testify? So we're complete with that, so now we're on to the people who've signed up today, correct? And are you Ms. Wheaton?
Yes.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Ann Wheaton. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. So first of all, you guys have heard testimony after testimony, so let's take a breath, because I'm imagining this is getting a little mind-numbing. So take a breath, and thank you for staying. I appreciate you guys do hard work. So I'm gonna state my position. You need to vote no on this bill, and the reasons, economic, and then I'm gonna talk to your personal experience so you can bring it home to yourselves, and then also the future of your job here at the Capitol. So the people who are in favor of the bill talked about the economic costs of the patchwork policies. So there is also a cost to people being ill while at work. Their productivity goes down. They may lose their job. The cost to hire and train a new worker at a company is expensive. There is a risk if somebody comes to work sick, they may spread the illness to one of their fellow employees, or perhaps maybe the person serving you coffee at Starbucks in the morning has an illness that should be managed at home. Okay. So, and then there are also the intangible benefits that employers sometimes forget about treating your employers with dignity and as humans. You all have sick time, and when you're sick, you get to stay home. When your child is sick, you get to stay home. A lot of people don't have that luxury. So on a personal level, say somebody you come in contact with in the community, and typically the jobs we're talking about are service jobs, low-wage jobs. So these are the people that collect your trash, do your dry cleaning, serve you food. Maybe they come to work sick. Maybe you don't get sick, but maybe your mother gets sick because your mother is immunocompromised. Maybe one of your kids get sick because they're immunocompromised. So it's you, and the thing is, this has a ripple effect. It doesn't affect just one person. So just finally, I want to talk about your positions here at the Capitol. You were voted in by your constituents. And as you probably have noticed, the political climate has changed radically in the recent weeks, and there's a lot of momentum. So the people who voted you in are not the people who are going to be voting for you in the next election. So just be aware of that. If you want to keep your job, you need to pay attention to it. Finally, I realize it takes profound courage to vote against party lines, but it also takes profound courage to step out of party line and into the line of practicality, reason, and humanity. Your job depends on it. The mental health and the physical health of our community members depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you Patricia Nauman?
No, I'm Lucinda Kai. You said my name a while ago, so I don't know.
Hold on one second. Is Patricia Nauman here? Patricia, if you could start making your way down. What was your name?
Lucinda Kai.
All right, well, go ahead with your testimony.
My name is Lucinda Kai. I am a former foster child with Hennepin County. I am also a youth advocate for Hennepin and Ramsey County kids who are on probation and foster care, as well as a special ed teacher at a charter school in South Minneapolis. I'm currently going through my second round of chemo that I was diagnosed with 3 years ago. Last year, I was hospitalized over 10 times, and since January, I've been hospitalized 2 times. Every single time that I was hospitalized, my employer made sure that I was covered by sick time, even allowing other teachers to give me their sick days. I realized that a lot of teachers, a lot of people who go through chemo, who are going through these chronic illnesses, don't have the privilege that I have at my job. Not only do we have sick and save time, we also have more sick and save time than Minneapolis even allows. But my employer gives us that privilege. My employer also realizes that he values my life over the capitalistic viewpoints that these people who are in favor of this bill. The lives of black, brown, and poor folks should not be valued by the amount of physical and emotional labor that they are able to give to their employer. By allowing local communities to make this decision to value the health and safety of their employees over the capitalistic mindset that people in favor of House File 600, you are saying that you care about my safety. You are saying that you care about the lives of the people that put you into office. When you kill this bill, not if you kill this bill, when you kill this bill, you'll be setting a path for other states to take lead from Minnesota, while showing others that you value the lives of your people, not only by labor, but by their safety. Just remember, capitalism kills. So if you go along with this bill, you are killing me slowly because of your greed, because of your low-key just white supremacy that you're doing right now. You are killing me slowly. You are killing people like me who have to pay now because I lost my insurance for their own chemotherapy that costs $2,000 a month. You are killing people like me who don't have employers like MNIC that will allow you to take safe time. Like tomorrow, I have chemotherapy. My employer, I give him a 1-day notice. I'm having time off. Other places don't do that.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Oh, and Anna Witrowski, you're on deck.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you very much. My name is Patricia Nauman. I'm the Executive Director of Metro Cities. Metro Cities is an association representing 90 cities in the metropolitan area before both the legislature and executive branch. I did provide a letter to the committee. The organization does respectfully oppose House File 600. Metro Cities policies generally support local control and decision-making authority and believe that local officials are in the best position to respond to their community's specific needs. Overall, the policies of the organization do oppose statutory or other policy restrictions that would impede the ability of local officials to act and protect the best interests of their community. In supporting this local decision-making authority, Metro Cities policies do recognize that what works for one community may not work for another, and that thus that flexibility that allows local officials to respond to the needs and circumstances of their community is very important and should be maintained. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. And Britton Mickelson, you're on deck. So please continue with your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Anna Witrowski, and I oppose this preemption. I live in St. Paul. I am here with Isaiah and myself. I am 31 years old. My parents were small business owners. My grandparents were small business owners before them in a small town in rural Minnesota that I grew up in. I work full-time at a local St. Paul business now. I went to college for 4 years. I have $25,000 in school loans. I've worked for both large corporations and very small businesses, full and part-time. Just last year, I got paid sick time and other benefits. When I looked at that paycheck for the first time that included the ability to take care of myself and not lose on pay, I felt joy. Then I felt mad, and I wondered to myself, wait, did I not deserve this before? I've always been a hard worker. My parents were business owners. I went to college. Did I not deserve this for 14 years? I don't think that's true. I just didn't know any better. If you're for this resolution, I'd like to ask you if you currently have paid sick time or you can afford to not go to work when you are sick because you make a living wage currently. And if you don't, wouldn't you want to be able to do that? I'm not a pack mule, and neither are you, and neither are any of them. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Jane Conrad. Thank you. Please proceed with state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Britton Mickelson. I am from St. Cloud, and I'm a full-time student. I'm working on getting my degree in science education, so I will hopefully be teaching your children and grandchildren someday. I actually was not planning on speaking. I was in the overflow room studying for a microbiology test I have tomorrow. But I did think it was important to provide a face to St. Cloud, because we've heard a lot about the cities, and while I think that's important, I think you all need to hear about a place that, well, you don't really represent, because I don't see my representatives here. So I am a part-time waitress. A couple weekends ago, I worked 27 hours in 3 days on my feet. I got about 15 minutes in breaks overall, because there's really no way for you to have a break when there's 15 tables and all of them are filled. I am the daughter of a public school teacher, and I am the granddaughter of small business owners in Iowa. So this is a really important thing for me, and I think it's really important for me to express that I want you all to vote against this. My family doesn't live in St. Cloud. I moved here by myself, so I want to actually tell you about my roommates who have become my family since moving here. I have 3 roommates. I have Julia, who is working on getting her nursing degree, Adam, who's also working on his nursing degree, and Monretti, who is working on getting her degree and going on to medical school to help people with physical therapy. All of us work in different service jobs. Julia works at the hospital helping people that are unfortunately on their deathbeds. Adam works in the nursing home and helps people every single day. And my other roommate, Monretti, works in a group home for vulnerable adults. She works with people with schizophrenia and people that are disabled. And all of my roommates, including myself, do this work tirelessly and with a smile because we love it. However, when I messaged my roommates to ask if any of us have paid sick leave, or if it would be better if we could get more fair pay, they all said that none of them have paid sick leave, even though we all work with vulnerable populations. And they all mentioned that it would be easier as full-time students to get better pay. It was actually kind of interesting because one of my roommates made the comment that she found was funny. All of us have service jobs that run 365 days a year, and we can't call in sick, and sometimes we get called in when we are sick. This is the roommate who has to worry about being able to pay rent and food and tuition at the same time as worrying about getting her clients who are mentally and physically disabled sick. So I want you to vote against this because we need things like paid sick leave and fair pay in St. Cloud. We are getting there, but we're not far enough. We've gotten there in the cities, and this bill would make it really difficult for it to even come close to St. Cloud, a place that desperately needs it because there are many people, many children living under the federal poverty line. And I hope you all, no matter party line, think that that's not okay. I really do. We need paid sick leave, we need better pay, and I don't necessarily think the state is fully equipped to handle that or to understand what my city needs. And that is why we have a city council. That's why we have people that we voted for to represent us. I may not agree with everything that the city council has done or will do or even believes, but they know my city, and they know me, and they know what I care about and what the people that they represent care about. And this bill would take away that power to work with each other and find a problem. I believe that we can work together to help people like my roommates, people like the people I serve, that my roommates serve at the hospitals and nursing homes and group homes, to help people like the students I worked with when I was doing my field experience, many of them immigrants under the federal poverty level. Their parents can't take off time to send them anywhere to get them help. They can't take off time to get their own healthcare needs available. But I also do want to mention something because I was raised in politics. I was raised to be up here and talk to you today, because I was raised to care about people and understand that you can make change through the political process. So I like to pay attention to this. And I want to mention to a few people specifically, if you ran on the idea of a small local government and government being in control, I hope that when you think about this bill, that you stand up for what you ran on. Because people voted for you on those ideas of representing them, of bringing the government to them, of making it local. Our local government can do a lot of good work to make sure our service industry is in good health and is thriving, and I want to keep it that way. And I hope you do too, especially if you ran on the idea that local government should have control. Because my local city, my government is a wonderful, great city that I want to stay in. But if I can't afford to live there, if my roommates can't afford to live there because we can't afford to work there, because we can't take off time to get health care needs, to take care of our future children, then we leave. And then the local government is no longer anything because there's no local city. And this bill stops the ability for us to work together as local governments and local people. And I hope, representatives, that you respect that and understand that. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Jan Conrad, and then is Kathleen Riley here? Kathleen? Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Jane Conrad. I'm a field representative for the East Central Area Labor Council. I'm also a board member on the Greater Minnesota Workers Center in St. Cloud, and I live in House District 13A. I hope you all enjoyed your dinner break and that you're really comfortable, because as you sit here with full bellies, people up in St. Cloud are struggling. They're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week to try to make ends meet. They make the hard decisions constantly on whether to buy groceries, pay their utility bills, or buy shoes for their kids. I have sat in the homes of many of these workers, and I've sat there and cried with them and heard their stories. I've gone out in my car and cried with them. I've listened to Donica tell me her story of how she was threatened to be fired on her job when she was having a miscarriage if she left for medical treatment. I heard from Mitchell how he was fired because he took a day off to bury his child. In 2013, St. Cloud's poverty rate was about 13%, and today it's almost doubled. That is an abomination. That is uncalled for. It seems that what we are currently doing today is not working for the majority of the people. This legislative body needs to take into account every testimony that they've heard here from every worker and the hardships that they go through. It is not easy for these people. You need to trust that the governments, the local governments, that the citizens of these communities have elected are knowledgeable and trustworthy. You need to trust that each community knows what is best for them. And you need to remember that we are supposed to be a government for the people, by the people, not a government for the corporations, by the corporations. It is wrong for government to take a heavy hand and try to control every aspect of our lives. I am asking you to vote no on HF 600. Thank you.
Kathleen Riley, and then Tom Kelly. Tom, are you here? Kathleen, are you here? Kathleen Riley? All right. Tom Kelly? And Tom, you are the final testifier who has signed up.
My name is Tom Kelly. I'm a nurse and an activist with 15 Now. Most of the 25 years that I worked as a nurse was working with children and adolescents. And if I learned anything that could put my finger on as being a causative thing for the stress and admissions to the hospital for children and adolescents, it was poverty. Every day I worked with families where the experience of being admitted to the hospital was a stress, not only because that condition at home contributed to it, but also the fact that now they had to deal with a child that was in the hospital. And They were worried about their job. They were worried about not being able to take time off to come to family meetings and things like that that were absolutely necessary. Now, I'll be short here, but a couple of years ago, I had a stroke and was not able to work as a nurse anymore. And while I was an activist before that event, and it was based on my experience as a nurse that really drove me to do it. It was afterwards where, I'm riding public transit and I'm closer to the people now, and it affected me. And so I realized that as I go to work, I had a feel for what was going on, but it was nothing like riding the bus every day and seeing people who are low-wage workers just trying to get by. I have heard the business community talk about the difficulties of managing the changes that we're asking them to make. But I have sympathy for that. Yeah, I have respect for people who take up the challenge of starting a business. But I'll tell you, the people that are heroes to me are the people that are loading up a child carrier onto the bus and going to the grocery store and carrying things back on the bus or walking, and the families that you see there. You know that they don't have jobs that pay enough. You know that. They don't have cars. They can't afford that. I'm just asking you to think about that. Minneapolis and St. Paul have done some things that are trying to make life better for those people. Don't take that chance away from them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Members and members of the public, this completes the public comment portion of the testimony. We'll now move to member questions and comments. Please get the attention of the committee administrator. While we're doing that, I have a question for two testifiers. First would be, is Ms. Nauman still here? She could come down. And then if there's somebody who could speak on behalf of a collective bargaining unit or from one of the unions, if they could come down as well too. First one up, first one down, you get it. Thank you. First of all, if you could both restate your name so that 100 years from now when we listen to the tape, we know who's talking.
Patricia Nauman, I'm the Executive Director of Metro Cities.
Brad Leto, Legislative Director for the Minnesota AFL-CIO.
Thank you. Ms. Nauman, the Metro Cities position, it's in opposition to this bill. Is it in favor of only progressive labor policies that cities would maintain control over, or is it agnostic on those issues, that as long as the decision is made locally, that the Metro Cities supports that? Ms. Nauman.
Mr. Chair and members, Metro Cities' policy on local control and decision-making authority is a very general policy that supports simply local control and decision-making authority. It does not get specific into those particular issues.
So, Ms. Nauman, if a local labor policy was being initiated by a city that was pro-worker, anti-worker, pro-union, anti-union, Metro Cities takes no position on that?
We do not have specific positions on those issues, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And to the other testifier, Is it your impression that every local labor policy is progressive and pro-worker?
There have been, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, committee members, there have been progressive labor policies that have been repealed by local units of government. And of course, we fight that. If you're implying that if a county municipality would decide to float an ordinance, an anti-labor ordinance, what we would view as an anti-worker, anti-labor ordinance, we would certainly advocate against that or fight that. I mean, and we're not afraid of doing that. I mean, if anybody wants to, depends on what they want to do, but the one thing I will say is that those issues will bring Republican and Democratic union members together, and they have in the past as well. So.
And Mr. Lito, so you're familiar with what happened in the state of Kentucky. And I should preface my comments by saying that I'm opposed to right to work.
Right.
Can you explain to members of the audience and the committee members, they were unable to implement our right to work policy in the state of Kentucky, and explain to members what happened using local labor policies?
Well, in Kentucky, they certainly, I believe it was, I don't know if it was a county or municipality, I have to look at, I have it back at the office, but that actually passed a right to work ordinance. It went through court a number of times. It was pending. Actually, though, I will say, since that point, Kentucky had an emergency legislative session right after the new legislators were sworn in that first week, and passed right to work, repealed prevailing wage, and they were effective the following Saturday, or following Monday after they did that. So that case is kind of a moot point, but actually, yes, it was in court, and it was, fought over in court. That's true. I actually don't believe, we've talked to some legal counsel, I actually don't believe this bill would prohibit. I know that may be your desire, but I don't believe this bill is in current form would prohibit a municipality or from doing right to work ordinance. And that was, we just talked today to legal counsel, and they said that it doesn't specifically outlaw that. If you did then in this bill, we still would not support the bill.
Of course. So, Mr. Alito, but can you tell me, does your organization have concerns about people using what has historically been a progressive movement for additional worker rights to, in fact, go to the municipal level, and if they only need 3 city council members, they can make a community a right-to-work community? I mean, do you, first of all, do you defend the right of cities to make that decision?
I defend the right of cities to make their own policies, yes. I will say, though, that we will fight that, and I would dare to say we would take up the, it would be interesting should any municipality decide to take that on. I think that it would be, they probably would be ill-informed. But to your question, yes, I support local units of government to be able to do progressive labor policies, and we would fight and I understand that somebody could do an anti-worker policy, and we would certainly fight that.
Is that your personal opinion, or is that the position of the organization you represent?
Well, no, I mean, we've actually, in talking to the officers of the AFL-CIO, we've said that it's like, if somebody wants to take that on, we'll take it on. I don't know that we have an official position that we would support, but we have an official position and a constitutional convention position to oppose preemption, to oppose this legislation in all forms. So that's what I'm here about. And I just say, have we talked officially with the board, which we have a board meeting next week, so we can certainly do that. But officially with the board about on those other policies, all I can say is whenever they're brought forth on the state level or wherever else, we will fight them vehemently.
And thank you for your testimony. And I do want to give you and your organization the opportunity to clarify my question. You don't have to answer it now, but perhaps you could speak with other people to verify that the AFL-CIO's position on local prevailing, I know what prevailing wage is, local right-to-work laws is that they support the right of cities to make that decision. and you don't have to answer it now, but would like clarification on it, because I want to state for the record the author's intent with this bill, and if I understand you're not going to be supporting this bill, but if I can put clarifying language in the bill to clarify, the author of this bill is opposed to right to work, and the intent of this author, for the record, is that the language in this would protect workers across the state from having a right to work ordinance implied on them.
As I said, it still won't let.
The crowd is
our support
confused
for the
about whether
bill.
to use the green arrows or red arrows with that statement. So thank you very much both for your testimony. Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've listened to most of the testimony and appreciate the thoughts of all these people. Thank you very much.
Can we allow the member to please ask Representative Sundin, you have the floor.
For certain?
For now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to talk real slow. In researching this issue prior to this meeting, I looked up an issue down in Shakopee, Minnesota, where the Shakopee raised its minimum wage to $19 for businesses seeking city subsidies. And my understanding is under subdivision 3, number 3, this doesn't apply to that Shakopee ordinance. It wouldn't negate that their practice of demanding $19 an hour when contracting out or when subsidizing businesses that operate in the city. So going under that assumption, I'd like to praise the city of Shakopee for being progressive enough to forward such a policy. But, I feel the need to commend that city. This fosters an economy that supports real wages, and it gives working families an opportunity to find dignity in the workplace. But this bill, by restricting local governments the chance to offer real family supporting economic opportunities, I see only a grim future for lower wage workers that will be reliant on more and more government services. If we condemn workers to this low wage poverty cycle, remember who picks up the bill. State and county governments that provide the social safety nets for the low-wage workers. This is a matter of worker dignity, too. I haven't asked anybody in the crowd, and I'm not going to, how many rely on some social services to augment their lifestyle because they have a low wage. All a lot of these people need is a way out of that cycle. And the only way they know how to do it is hard work. And they should be rewarded for hard work. If the cities want to provide the means to do that with a higher wage, they should be allowed to do so. The state of Minnesota should stay the heck out. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sundin. Representative Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been a long evening, and I would say the people have spoken.
Representative Moran, before you continue, I just want to make sure that those in the audience or those viewing on TV know that is ginger beer.
It is ginger beer.
It is not an alcoholic beverage, I can assure you. So please continue with your testimony. You said Representative Moran.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So when I've been in the legislature now for 6 years. And I know since the time I've been here, and I reflect and think back on, our Mr. Obama, President Obama, and when he came into office in 2008, and when I came into this body, and when the federal government was doing the work that they was doing, in a lot of ways to create practices like what we are hearing from the people now, it came into this body where all the conversation was about local government and how important it was for local government to be making decisions about their community because they knew best. And I just am appalled and do not understand how with a flip of a moment, we are trying to take the right of local government to make decisions about their citizens. And so when I listen to all of the businesses and corporations, not that we don't want businesses to thrive and do well and hire more employees and pay them well, we do, but those were the same companies when I was carrying, equal pay for equal work for women. When they would come in and complain about how cumbersome it would be for them to do the right thing. This is the right thing for working class people, for hard working class people, and for the state, and for us to try to get in the way of that. It's a little shameful. It's a little shameful. So, I'm disappointed. I just can't believe that this is coming from your party, that you are trying to take away local control from communities around this state. And so we have to continue to speak up, continue to fight, and do the right thing. So my hope is that you can find the place to do the right thing, because this is your stance that I have heard for 6 years in this body. Your stance. And it's a shame that you are trying to take away an increase in minimum wage so people who work hard can make a decent living and can take off work when they need to take off, when their kids are sick, when parents are sick. So, yeah, a little disappointed.
Representative May Quaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question about the bill. Did you do an equity impact statement?
Representative May Quaid, no, I did not.
Okay. Which is a common question I've been asking a lot of my colleagues. And I ask that because we always talk about disparities. We had the first 2 weeks of this committee, we heard about housing and deed and job creation fund and resources to go to people. And who do you think those people are that are going to these services? They're the people that we take wages away from. We talked about a one Minnesota, united Minnesota. We are not a united Minnesota. Black Minnesotans make less than half of their white peers. Black, brown, and native bodies are living in poverty in this state. The disparities are increasing, and we wonder how we increase it. It's just like this. There are 150,000 Minnesotans that you know of that you will take earned sick and safe time away from. And I don't know how you can be comfortable with that. The intent with this bill is not to preempt right to work. That's why it goes back to January of 2016. There is no right to work happening in Dakota County or Carleton County. That's not happening. What's happening is local control, local democracy is working for some people. The local democracy that you preach about. And it seems like the only kind of local control you care about is when you can control the locals. I really want to be very clear on this, because we heard about the headache it causes businesses and the increasing challenges of administrative nightmares. I'm so sorry. We heard from people who are pregnant and hoping to take care of their children, who are losing their homes when they have to take a day off of work because that one day's wage is the difference from making rent and not. I don't care that much about administrative headaches, but I would hope that the administrative headaches and the compelling reasons that they have to come in front of a state body when they should talk to the cities, that they could figure that out. They work internationally and nationally and across state lines. I think that they can have the innovation to find systems to figure this out. So it's hard to sit at this table when we have Minnesota legislators, or Minneapolis legislators, excuse me, and St. Paul legislators, and Minneapolis residents and St. Paul residents. They all did this together in their own communities and brought this to their own elected officials. And then everybody that doesn't represent them came in and preempted that and wanted to take it away. I really did listen to the businesses that came in first because I wanted to understand. I wanted to understand why they would go around the local communities that worked so hard for this. And all I heard was that it's a little bit hard. It's a little bit annoying. And then I heard some very compelling arguments from real people who are sitting in this audience right now telling us that their lives are on the line. So this is disappointing. Thank you, Representative Moran. It is. It's very disappointing. Representative Chair Garofalo, I hope you would reconsider this bill because clearly the people are speaking very loudly about how much this will impact them and impact working Minnesotans.
Representative
Chair Garofalo, I'd
Representative
like
Mahoney.
to call for a roll call on this.
Roll call has been
particular-
requested, and we'll have a roll call on this vote. Thank you, Representative Mahoney. Representative McQuaid, I will not address all of your points, but I will address one point, and that is you said that no one is working for right to work in the state of Minnesota, or something to the effect. I would tell you that in Dakota County, you would be very surprised what city officials at this present moment have draft ordinances being presented to them by groups waiting for the actions of this legislative session. Communities that are very close to your legislative district, in fact, in your legislative district, Representative McQuaid. So I would advise you to speak with your local officials to find out that these organizing efforts, not for progressive causes, but for what you would label anti-worker causes, are being proposed right now. Representative McQuaid, I mentioned you, so you get the rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would hope that we would get to work together in fighting that. That's the point of working regionally. I see all of these bills that come through the legislature, and there's unlikely friends on them, right? I'm on a bill with you because it's about the bills be damned. I see people all over the state that are unlikely to be on a bill together, and I look, and it's because it's regional. That's why regional and local democracy works really well. So I hope to work with you to fight the right-to-work stuff that's happening right in my district. And I don't believe the idea that if people want to build something that undermines unions, good luck finding good people to build it.
Representative Clark and then Metza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you for giving us this time to have this discussion. I especially want to thank the audience. The fact that you've been here, you spoke so well. It was very inspiring to hear the individual stories and to hear the framework of justice that you kept referring to over and over and over, and I thank you for that. We need that. It really nourishes our sense of justice. So please stay with us. Don't go away. This is just the first step in probably a number of bills that we'll have to have your kind of support for stopping and going further. And I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, well, before I make a specific recommendation, I want to say that the speeches I heard were some of the best pro-democracy speeches I've heard in a long time, and that was really one of the inspiring parts. I was going to suggest, Mr. Chairman, there's an invitation extended to us by St. Paul. Numerous people here talked about the work that was done at the local levels being small steps, first steps. And as I was looking at the letter from the city of St. Paul, they said they would welcome the opportunity to work with us to craft state law that would replicate the good work that was done at the local levels. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to suggest that that's part of the answer to your question, and that's what we need to do. We need to take some of the model that's happened at the local level and try to look at these issues of sick and safe leave, at least $15 wage, minimum wage, numerous other issues that were discussed at a state level. And so it doesn't become just a matter of state and local, it becomes a matter of justice at the state level. So I would just like to say I would really be very interested in working with you on that so that we solve this dilemma of state versus local, and we do the kind of work that I think has been, offered to us as a challenge. And so, Mr. Chairman, would you work with me on that kind of a proposal, please?
Representative Clark, I always work with all legislators of both parties to advance legislative agendas. Is that the completion of your statement?
Yeah, I would like to, ask you to work with us on a statewide law that addresses the same kind of things that have been successfully passed at the local
Thank
level.
you, Representative Clark. Representative Metza and then Dabney.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Chair. Damn. We're part of a real political awakening, and it's kind of weird how we got here. But it's an honor to be sitting here and watching you take your government back, so thank you for this opportunity. Representative Garofalo, we talk about this bill, or Chair Garofalo, I apologize. We talk about this bill and preemption, and I think, if we're going to preempt something, we might as well pass a statewide agenda first. And if we had a working families agenda that was fighting for things like paid family leave, you want to see how a bill gets introduced? A few more signatures we need here, and I invite my Republican colleagues tonight to sign on to a bill that was cheaper than a bill that we heard last night, a $420 million proposal for tax credits that you can't get for a year. This is an insurance program that you could get tomorrow. Actually, it'd take a few years to get put together, but once it's funded and employer-employee matched, you could access it, go back, take care of a loved one. And we've got Representative Moran, whose leadership on wage theft, which is running rampant through our cities and companies in terms of what they aren't able to pass on. And I say cities because we haven't passed an LGA increase, which means we can't pass along a pay raise that we should to the workers who are cleaning our garbage, washing our windows, maintaining our roads, bridges, and infrastructure. We've got earned sick and safe. These are all things I think a lot of us stand for, but they seem to fall on party lines. And it's sad. And I think what I heard from voters this year is that we don't want party lines, we want progress. And, you know, overall, Mr. Winton's here, and Mr. Winton testifies for the chamber all the time. And last year came in and said, the small businesses in my community, and Mr. Winton, I hope you're listening carefully because you picked a bad fight last year. I really don't like you because of it. The businesses in my community would rather get a $28 credit in what we passed along from the unemployment insurance rebate that we created than to have $30 million spent at their stores. So that leads me to say, what do the Iron Range and the metro area here have in common? We've both gotten the shaft from the Minnesota Chamber and the companies they represent. We have Target, Cargill, major Fortune 500 companies in this state that I am proud are here and able to do business. But what befuddles me is that in Europe where they operate, they are offering a year of benefits for paid family and medical leave. And they can't even offer it to their own people in Minnesota, the state that they're harboring to do their business within. Why? Because the work ethic of the people in this room. And what do Minnesota and the rest of this people in this country have in common? We all got screwed by Wall Street. Screwed. Billions and billions of dollars that could have gone out to programs to pay for better education, to provide single-payer health care to everyone, and make our country great again in a way that's actually going to work. And then I got to asking myself, what do Wall Street and Washington have in common? And right now, it's way too much.
Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to my colleagues who've spoken. But more importantly, thank you to the testifiers tonight. It's getting a little late. We started, as you pointed out, I think at 4:09, and have been going pretty strong since, with a lot of testimony that I've heard that's been very, very powerful about the real things, the real people's lives, the challenges, as well as the hard-fought victories. And I want to thank you for bringing that here, because we don't get enough of that here in the Minnesota Capitol. This idea of preemption first hit my radar screen, I think it was last summer, when Mr. Weaver of the Minnesota Business Partnership authored a op-ed piece proposing it in the Star Tribune. And it wasn't long after the Brexit vote in the United Kingdom. And I read it, and I thought, my God, how tone-deaf can you be? Here, the United Kingdom had just had a vote where people had said, we want the government to be more responsive to us. The European Union is too far away and unresponsive, and so we're pulling out. And at the same time, here in the United States, you had, on the left, Bernie Sanders, who lit up the country, touching a chord on wages, on health care, college affordability, and other issues. At the same time, on the far right, you had Donald Trump, again, lighting things up, focused on international trade agreements, with everybody saying the same thing. We want our government to be more responsive. Now, if the Brexit vote is too far away and the presidential campaign too long ago, members, I'd ask you to look at the last 2 weeks. January 21st, across this country in 600 demonstrations, 3 million women and their supporters marched to maintain their dignity and rights and opportunity. And just last weekend, thousands of people protested when they saw President Trump's executive order banning Muslims from entering this country and unconstitutionally setting a religious test and a religious preference on immigration. People want, on the left and the right, their government to be more responsive to their real lives, not less. And they want elected officials to be more responsive to their constituents, their voters, and their communities, and less responsive to corporate special interests and lobbyists. Members, I counsel you to keep that in mind, because as was said here tonight, they're coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Davney. Before I go to Representative Thies and Representative Davney, I do want to say I agree with you on one thing. I don't know if you said it or not, but I think had more progressive legislators backed Bernie Sanders, I think he would have beat Donald Trump for president. Too many sided with Hillary Clinton. I think you're right. I don't know if you said that, but that's what I agree.
I didn't, but...
Yeah, okay. Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would Mr. Winton and Jill Larson come to the table for...
Mr. Winton, are you still here? Ms. Larson, if you could come on down. Welcome to the committee, and if you could each just, again, for the tape, restate your names, and then we'll go to Representative Thiessen.
Sure. Cam Winton, Minnesota Chamber of Commerce.
Jill Larson, Minnesota Business Partnership.
Representative Thiessen.
Thanks. I was just wondering if either of your organizations would support the statewide sick and safe time law modeled on what they've done in St. Paul and Minneapolis. If you want uniform, in the interest of uniformity.
Sure. Mr. Chair, Representative Thiessen, as I mentioned in my opening comments, it's bad enough when the state mandates that businesses in Minnesota must provide a specific particular benefit set, and it's even worse when cities do because of the patchwork problem that we've heard about all night. And so the short answer to your question is no, but let me say, if I could, Mr. Chair, Representative, an additional word about why the answer is no. As I mentioned in my opening, it's real. You know, it really may sound hokey, but it's really the case that businesses in Minnesota, employers in Minnesota, value their employees. And tonight's testimony makes clear from our fellow Minnesotans and our fellow human beings that among some employers, there's obviously room for improvement. But the vast majority of employers in Minnesota are doing the right thing by their employees, and they're looking for opportunities to share growth. And that's why we see wage growth right now. That's the highest it's been in 8 years. That's why we see new benefit packages being rolled out, because just as one quick example, millennial fathers, I'm using millennials as a rough age bracket, fathers are saying, you know, I want paternity leave. That was something that our grandfather's generation, to my knowledge, never had. But they're saying we want paternity leave, and companies on a voluntary basis more and more are rolling that out. So in conclusion, Representative Thiessen, we do think that that prescription, that mandate is not the right way to go, but we want to continue sharing best practices within the industry so that companies know what's expected. and they can offer it.
Ms. Larson, same question, perhaps a more brief answer.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Thiessen, we have not in the past supported a state mandate. We don't think the state should be dictating benefits between employers and employees, even though our members, like I said before, already provide good benefits. We'd like to be able to have the flexibility to do what works best for our employees and employers. And even though that we probably already provide the benefit, these mandates don't allow us to just say, if you're providing the benefit, you're exempt. We have to comply with all of the paperwork, and it's just, and our employees don't receive any additional benefit. And we want to be able to provide what works for our employees, and we don't think the state should be dictating it. And we don't think we should basically tell other small and mid-sized businesses what to do either.
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you. So, I will first acknowledge, I think, and we should acknowledge, that there are businesses in the state of Minnesota who are providing these benefits. And, we should applaud those businesses, and some were here tonight. Some of them were here tonight actually testifying against the bill, but they were here tonight. But it seems to me, in light of those answers, so the answer, the discussion we've had all night, it would have been interesting to have a drinking game where the word patchwork was when you had to drink. Because, clearly that was the talking point for the night. But the argument that's being made is we need statewide unity. And then we hear this testimony that we heard tonight. And I hope that you take this testimony you heard tonight back to your boards, because I think it would be important for them to actually hear this testimony from these folks. But it seems to me as if the argument is we want statewide unity, so we need to get rid of the help that's being provided at the local level, but we don't want to provide the help at the state level. What you're really saying is, and what you actually just testified is, we actually don't want to make progress for things like sick and safe time, things like paid time off. Things like, making sure that there's not wage theft in this state. All of things which you've opposed. And so I think it's just important to clarify for the record, even though the frame that was put on this bill is we don't want a patchwork of these types of laws in different parts of the state. What's really going on here is that your organizations oppose, and I appreciate you for being honest about this, actually oppose this kind of progress in the state of Minnesota. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, Representative Thiessen, may I respond to one point you made, sir?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's not up to me, but.
Sure, thanks. Respectfully, Representative Thiessen, I might reframe it. You say that the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce does not want to make progress on these issues, but the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce would measure progress by how many employees out there have some type of leave, how many employees have some sort of sharing in the profits. And Representative Thiessen, it seems that you...
Metsa, you have been in the legislature long enough to know. We talk at one at a time here. Please, don't burn relationships in this chamber. You know better. So interrupting testifiers, I understand why the public doesn't understand this. You're a sitting legislator. You're not a rookie. You understand this?
Mr. Chair,
So,
I think you made your point. Move on.
Thank you. Mr. Winton, are you done?
One final piece of the sentence, and it's Representative Thiessen, it seems, sir, that you're characterizing progress as, is there a government mandate to offer something? And the chamber would think that the way to measure progress is, are more Minnesotans sharing in our prosperity? And that is an important question, and I think there's a good discussion there. And the chamber is committed to continuing to share best practices and hold them up high so that all Minnesotans can see, yeah, that's something we could do for our employees if we can afford it at some point.
Representative Thiessen, did you have a...
Thank you. No, thank you.
Okay. Representative Mahoney, you get the last word on the DFL side.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to commend the audience here today, the people who have spoken against this bill. There has been eloquent and heartfelt, and for me, moving testimony. People came up here and talked about the hypocrisy of this particular bill, the patchwork of this bill, the pain that this bill, the pride of what they did to force the moneyed interest of Minnesota to come to the chair and put this bill forward. You have done a job that, and I've been here 20 years, and I've sat through many testimony, many late-night committee hearings, many long committee hearings, and I have to say that this is one of those that I will remember for the eloquence and the heartfelt piece to your testimony. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been here a long time, not quite as long as Representative Clark, and I know, but I'm going to tell a story about one of the war horses or the stalwarts of our legislature. And he from Minneapolis giving what we call, or used to call, a barn burner of a speech against the bankers. Railed against them, was on in about 20 minutes into his barn-burning speech. And his aide came up to him and said, whispered in his ear, they caved. And he turned around on a dime and praised the bankers and said how good they were and how well they were working with people. Now, that's not to say, good things about bankers or whatever. That's kind of the bad thing about being a legislator is sometimes you have to move on a dime. I did a lot of research on this particular bill. Looked at old campaign literature that we all have of each other's. And I remember some of the speeches given on the floor by the author of this bill about local control. Each one of the pieces of literature by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle spoke to local control. You're going to take that away today. You're going to vote to take that away today. And that's, I'm hoping I'm not going to get into an ethics issue here, but that seems so hypocritical to me. You spend multiple years building a base of we should allow local communities to, who are closest to their constituents to make the rules. And then you flip this because the chamber, business partnership, Weaver and an editorial say that this is a bad idea. And that's wrong. That's just flat out wrong. We come here, we work really, really hard to get here. We try to hold core principles about what we are all about and why we're here. And to flip on that kind of a dime is hard to see. And I know it can happen on small issues, but not on core issues that you've campaigned on. I will say this about sick and safe time, the fight for 15. The study after study, typical retail store has between 200 and 250 employees. And most of them are low-wage employees. And those low-wage employees, aside from their health, need state assistance in order to even reach a minimal life. And on average, because of housing subsidies, because of SNAP or food stamps, because of medical care that goes onto the state's dime, the taxpayers, people sitting at this table, sitting in this room, people that live on my block in my district, are subsidizing those retail outlets to the tune of about $2,000 an employee. That, Mr. Chair, to use a line that you used last year, is crony capitalism. undocumented crony capitalism in how we do our budgeting. So a typical large store, large retail store, and I got the names and I'm just not going to mention them, but typically takes a $400,000 to $500,000 a year subsidy from the taxpayers. And for us to say, after the democratic process, after local democracy went to work, to say that those stores should not have to pay for sick time. Those stores should not have to provide safe time. Or, let's hope, for a $15 minimum wage, so that we as taxpayers can save $2,000 per employee is off the charts for me. I don't mind subsidizing businesses and helping businesses get started. But when you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, for us to do that, it's ridiculous. We've been here a long time. I'm going to finish with this one, with these letters that were sent to us today, because I've got pages here, and I'm sure I'll have the opportunity to use them as we move forward. But Representative Garofalo, wait, I got one other thing. You mentioned on NPR that there were all these places that were talking about local right to work and prevailing wage and a variety of other things. I've done my homework there. I've made multiple phone calls. And I didn't hear of anyone bringing that up. So, you know, and I like you. I'm one of the few. But I don't believe that you should emulate your hero with alternative facts. But what gets to me is that you bring this forth, and we talked about the metro cities, the 90-some plus cities there. But the League of Cities, the League of Minnesota Cities, which represents 833 of Minnesota's 853 cities, is against your bill. Then you add in St. Paul and Minneapolis, and I'm not sure that Duluth is on there, is on that 833. But you get to 835, pretty close to 100%, not quite, but pretty close, don't like your bill. But I guess their local control is different than your local control, Mr. Chair, and I hope that we vote this bill down. From past votes in the committee today, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. So, to quote another person from NPR, the governor, it sounded like the only way this gets through, any kind of preemption, is if we go to a statewide sick and safe time. So maybe your name will be on a statewide sick and safe time bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Mahoney. Thank you, Representative Mahoney. And just a couple of closing thoughts from the author, and then we'll move forward. First of all, I thought one of the wise things that was said tonight is someone said it takes profound courage to step out of the party line. And as someone who practices that belief, I strongly, strongly agree with that. I want to thank the members of both the Republican and DFL parties, authors who have co-sponsored this bill. I'm proud of the fact that there's bipartisan support for this legislation. I'm also proud of the fact that the only way this bill will become law is if there's bipartisan support. If there is not the support of a DFL governor for this, it won't become law. That's just the reality of the process. And so as we move forward, I'm proud that the committee unanimously agreed to add two provisions that are included in the governor's budget recommendations. First of all, additional money for wage theft enforcement. We want to make sure that the bad businesses that are out there that are ripping people off, they're not paying what they're owed, they get caught and they get busted. And so I'm proud of the fact that this committee unanimously included some of the governor's budget recommendations in that area. I'm also proud of the fact that the Public Employment Relations Board a provision that I personally lobbied against and voted against when my party was in the minority, that had almost no Republican support, that the funding to activate that board and allow it to go forward is included in this bill. I will also mention publicly that there are some data practices changes that are required for that key priority of the labor movement to become law. Those will be adopted in another committee as soon as we receive the clarifying language from the governor's office on their changes. And I think that as we move forward here, this is not the final word on this matter. This is the beginning of a conversation, not the end of it. And at the end of the day, in conference committee, if DFLers and Republicans, business and labor can get together and address each other's concerns, then we're going to move forward on this bill. And I think the workers, the businesses, and the families of Minnesota will be better off. But only if there's bipartisan support, only if we agree to it together. And at the end of the day, if we don't reach that agreement, and if there's not bipartisanship on it, then it won't become law. On a final point, I would say that I love looking out into a committee room and seeing so many people at 8:45 at night. I love it. I think it's great. I would offer this advice to you. When you catcall people you disagree with, that was special. That was good. That was good. In all seriousness, I think you have a legislative agenda you want to see implemented and ideas you're against. When you interrupt people who are testifying and you raise your voice, it moves your cause backwards.
When you take sick time away from people, you move time backwards too.
And just like that. And the more you yell, the message you're conveying, people just hear the loud voice and the yelling. So I'll get back to the issues of the bill. Thank you again to members of both sides of the aisle for their support. A roll call has been requested, and the committee legislative assistant will take the roll.
Garofalo.
Yes.
Newberger.
Aye.
Mahoney.
No.
Clark.
No.
Wagenius.
No.
Anderson.
Yes.
Barr.
Yes.
Baker.
Aye.
Dabney.
No.
Fabian.
Yes.
Howe.
Aye.
Lehman.
Yes.
McQuaid.
No.
Metza.
No.
Moran.
No.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Rarick.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Sundin.
No.
Thiessen.
No.
Vogel.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
There being 13 ayes and 9 nays, the motion to pass House File 600 as amended is passed and referred to the committee, as amended, is passed and referred to the Committee on Government Operations.
Shame on you! Shame.
Members, the committee's over. We are adjourned. Thank you.